even when we reach a time when we have no maize in this country, we don't have to import GMO. We can import maize from Uganda. We can import maize from Tanzania. We can import maize from parts of the African countries that grow good maize, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to challenge the Honorable Moses Kuria. I felt like I should not respond to him, but because I was not sure whether, when he made that statement, whether he was coming from a bar or a church. So that's why I will decide to engage him. And that was a very reckless statement. It's a statement that doesn't inspire hope in our people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to tell this country that even during the time of Jesus, the very many people who led to the spread of the gospel were not very many. They were very few. The majority were persecuting those who are found with the Bible. And I want to assure Kenyans that I will continue to advocate for no importation of maize until we have mopped up enough maize in this country. Before we go to that, Madam Speaker, we should revive the National Strategic Reserve and ensure that it have got enough maize there, Madam Speaker. I know time is not on my side, but I support this motion by a Member of Parliament for Mosop, by Honorable Kirwa. We need more than 10 Kirwas. This country will change. You don't need to change any law. But people who think forthrightly like Abraham Kirwa, this country will change, Madam Speaker. I support.
Thank you. Member for Endebess, Dr. Pukosa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to contribute. And I want to pick from where my colleague, Honorable Didymus Barasa, just left, that we have enough maize in the North Rift, within Trans Nzoia and Bungoma, enough that we should not be importing maize at this moment when our farmers are harvesting. I want to make it clear that I heard the majority leader say that we are harvesting about 30 million bags, so we will have a deficit of 10 million. When we get that deficit of 10 million, that's the right time to import. It is not now. And it will be prudent for us. We can import from Uganda. In Endebess, essentially borders Uganda. And many of our farmers from Kenya, they go and plant in Uganda maize because it is cheaper to hire land in Uganda. You can lease land at about 5,000 shillings Kenyan money per acre. Yet in Kenya, we lease between 12,000 to even 15,000. So it is cheaper to lease there. And the people who have leased in Uganda, they are Kenyans. Who are farming in Uganda, they are Kenyans. And it is once the productivity is high there, once they have produced their maize, they bring it to sell it to us. And many of them are facing restrictions at the border, where when they are coming with their maize to sell it back here at home, they are being asked for taxation at the border. The KRA are demanding some tax from them. They are demanding some money from the lorries which they are ferrying, which I think is unnecessary restrictions if we need to be able to make our people to be food sufficient. We've also, the previous regime, we have the shamba system within the communities neighboring the forest. In this shamba system, we plant trees. And when we plant trees, we also plant maize. Once the trees becomes to a certain level, then you can no longer be able to plant maize. So it kicks you out of planting maize. The regime that was there discouraged those communities, the CFS, from planting maize, that they plant short-term crops. These short-term crops were tomatoes, which could not be able to perform in that area. So in a way, we even contributed to food deficit. Because if we had allowed these farmers, in addition to taking care of the trees, because in these areas where they are planting, we call it pellies. These are areas where trees have already been cut and harvested by the timber companies. So the land has been left fallow. The communities surrounding it form the CFS, which now plant maize and plant trees. They are taking care of those trees. Once the trees reach a certain level, it chases away those who are planting maize. So in a way, we've not been able to, we've made our farmers to be poor. We've impoverished them. We've made them not to have any food for themselves. And yet here we are complaining. The government has said we are subsidizing fertilizer, which is a good thing. But let's subsidize fertilizer for the next crop, because the current crop, the cost of production was just too high. We were buying fertilizer at around 6,000. We were buying maize seed at 10 kilogram at around 2,000 or 3,000. Now, then you are plowing because of the cost of fuel. It was also high. Then here we are trying to tell farmers that at this time when the millers are trying to blackmail farmers that we want to import GMOs so that farmers can bring down their prices. It is wrong. The market forces should be able to control. The farmers should be able to sell now their maize at around 6,000 per 90 kilogram. If that is the price, we'll be able to mop out all the maize that is available there. But the government can even do better. They can open national cereal boards and purchase for farmers and feed Kenyans who are not having food in other areas. With those few remarks, I want to stand with the Honorable Kirwa, the member for Mosop, on this important motion on adjournment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Suba North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for indulging me. Madam Speaker, I just want to indicate that the government needs to listen to the members of parliament, because members of parliament deal directly with the communities. And if you listen to a house where both sides of the house are almost speaking with one voice, then you need to know that there's a problem. And if the people who are coming from maize growing areas are telling us that there's enough maize, why are we importing? Unless our main intention is to kill our farmers. So I would want to urge the government to listen to that. I also want to add my voice to the issue of GMOs. Madam Speaker, one of the members when they were speaking earlier was saying that most of us are speaking out of conjecture. Madam Speaker, I'm glad this House has people who are very well educated. My master's I did on intellectual property rights on plant genetic resources. And I can tell you one of the main things I dealt with was GMOs. And I can tell you that even in the United States, where Bill Gates is coming from, this is a very contentious issue. And if it is so good, then he needs to go and sell the GMOs in his own country. We cannot be used as guinea pigs for things that we don't know yet, and the impact as this country. We are already dealing with a high impact of cases of cancer. We don't know if these GMOs are going to cause cancer, or if actually they are the ones contributing to cancer, because somehow people still find a way of bringing them in. So, Madam Speaker, let us not use our children and our people as guinea pigs. We are not saying we should completely outlaw, but let us test, let us research, and once it is proven, I want to even thank Dr. Nyikal, that from a health perspective, where you are not sure, where research is giving divergent views, avoid. And I think it's Honorable Beatrice that talked about we have just dealt with COVID. We don't know where COVID came from. For all we know, COVID could have been generated from GMOs. If you actually, because we don't have time, if I actually was able to read for you even how this GMO is generated, I don't even understand how we can even be sitting here thinking about it. And Madam Speaker, there's also one thing that people have talked about here, which I want to stress, that we want to kill our farmers. In India, when these issues came, farmers were lighting themselves and dying because their livelihoods were being threatened. Why? Because of intellectual property rights. Once these seeds are produced, you cannot regrow the seeds. You must buy the seeds all the time in order to plant. What does that mean? That all our farmers will be buying seeds from the US all the time, from other countries all the time. Does that poor farmer in Rusiga or in Mfangano Island have the money to be rebuying seeds? What I know is our grandparents and our great-grandparents kept seed on the roofs for indigenous plants. And what they do is every planting season, you use it and reuse it. Another thing the other problem that we have with GMOs is they are not resilient to the diseases and the weather in our countries. And sometimes they may yield good produce, but if unfortunately they get one attack, because of their homogeneity, the entire populace of crops is destroyed. So let us not, it is proven, it is things which we have learned, which we have looked at. It's not things conjecture. And it is not about politics. When Honorable Sally Kosgei was the minister, and I was here in the 10th Parliament, and she was bringing a bill on that, and I was actually dissuading members from outside there, and she got very upset with me, because we were on the same side. Not because I was playing politics, because I am not playing, but I was talking facts from what I've learned in school. So I'd want to encourage us, as a country, let us think of our people, let us not kill our people, because the lure of money is very attractive for now. And I just want to encourage my brother Moses Kuria that now he has a very good position. Be careful about what you say. Kenyans are poor, Kenyans are hurting, Kenyans are hungry. Careless statements can take us in a wrong direction. I thank you, and I want to thank Honorable Kirwa for this important motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The next chance will go to the member for Bomet East, Honorable Richard Yegon.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And let me rise to also give my voice to this very important issue regarding the GMO. And I would like to say, from the voices of what that we have heard from this August House, it seems that this country has got enough maize which needs to be checked and made sure that we buy those maize first of all before we go out of this country and procure maize. Madam Speaker, it has come to our knowledge very many times that the powers that be normally try to look for things and ways of trying to bring things from outside before checking what is in the country first. In fact, from the area which I come from the South Rift, we used to plant a lot of maize, and it used to do very well until it has reached a time whereby I think there is something which was brought into the South Rift, which is killing maize. And I think if we are not careful again, this thing is going to be taken into the North Rift, where we are getting a lot of a good harvest. And we want to urge the government to make sure that we broaden our issues and check on the North Rift first, and then look at this maize which has been harvested and the one which is being harvested now. And those, we understand also the farmers are hoarding maize, that it is not because of their wish to hoard the maize. They are getting rough time in getting better prices. Now, what we are asking is that we want to see the Cabinet Minister of Agriculture and the Minister for Trade to come to this house. We are going to request that they can come here. We ask them all these pertinent questions so that we can address all of us and make sure that before we go the GMO way, we exploit all the avenues and see that we get what is in the country and buy from the farmers. I stand to support the motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member for Starehe, Honorable Amos Mwago. If not in the House, member for Kitui Central, Dr. Makali Mulu. If not in the House, we will have the member for Samburu West, Honorable Naisula Lesuda.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I rise to support this very important motion by Honorable Kirwa. And I just want to say that, listening to my colleagues, it is very clear that as a country, we don't have an issue with food security. We have an issue with food distribution. There are parts of this country, as we've heard from our colleagues, and I don't think they're talking from the air. They come from these constituencies. They represent farmers in this country. And when they say that the farmers have maize, it is clear that farmers have maize. And then for us who are coming from areas where we are hardly hit by the drought, it is clear that we have a problem in ensuring that the food we have in other parts of the country reach other parts of the country that do not have food, Madam Speaker. And it is not just maize. I also saw farmers in Nyandarua and areas around there talking that they're feeding vegetables, potatoes, and even tomatoes to their livestock, when we have other parts of this country, people dying because of drought, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is important that even if, for whatever reason, we have to import maize, it cannot possibly be GMO maize. We have maize from our neighboring countries. We are speaking about regional integration, Uganda, and other countries, Madam Speaker, in East Africa that do have maize. We can import maize that is not GMO, Madam Speaker. And when, as a people and people who represent our people that sent us to Parliament, when we raise issues to do with GMO, it is so sad when you see those that we vetted, that we passed in this Parliament, making very condescending statements that you will die anyway. Would you rather die of hunger? That there are 1,000 ways of dying, Madam Speaker. It is very unfortunate. And also anyone who raises such questions to do with the safety of GMOs, you're told that you're rich. Let us not continue with these class wars about the rich and the poor. Anybody, all of us who are raising these issues, is because we are raising them on behalf of the people that we do represent, and there's no need of calling others filthy rich and others poor, Madam Speaker. I'd also like to say this, that the same way there was a Gazette notice to ask for the importation of the 10,000, was it the metric tons that were being imported? If for sure farmers are hoarding maize, why haven't we seen the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture making a statement saying that we have a shortage of maize? Farmers, please, we have opened our NCPB. Please bring the maize that you have, and we will be buying the maize for this amount of money. Madam Speaker, we would also like to know the maize that is being imported at how much? Because this is where the cartels come in. You will find that the maize that is being imported is at 5,300 or 5,500 for a 90 kg of maize, but our farmers here are being told stop hoarding, and you want to buy the maize at 3,000 Kenya shillings. So please, we want to, you to be transparent with our farmers and say we have opened the stores, bring the maize so that we can buy, and we are buying at this price, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I do not want to belabor the whole issues of GMO and their safety. When we raise these issues, it is important that you give us the answers. You're the policy makers. We have research institutions in this country. We want to be told how safe we are with the GMOs, and we will continue to ask these questions, and don't try to silence us by telling us that they are safe and we're being ignorant and we should argue with facts. When you tell us they are safe, also argue with facts. Tell us when the research was done by who, also give us the facts, and not only make the ones who are asking the questions about the safety of GMO to also look like we're ignorant and we don't know what we are talking about. If you know what you're talking about, please table and tell us when the research was done and where it was done, Madam Speaker. So with those very few remarks, I do want to support this very important motion. Thank you.
Member for Kwanza, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. First and foremost, I don't even know where this GMO is coming from. They have not told us. I don't know where it's coming from. I come from Trans Nzoia. I want to say here and be on record that I've got maize for last harvest, 500 bucks in my store in Kwanza, waiting for the prices to be all right so that I can be able to sell off. It has not happened. Now, as we are talking, we are harvesting maize, and I can tell you that we have enough. That's why, on point of order correction, I told the leader of the majority that he's talking about 30 or whatever. We have enough maize in this country, and therefore, all we need to do is to make some corrections. I have no problem, but we have messed up the whole system. We had strategic food reserve organization, which was scrapped, and serious board, national serious board, doesn't even know where the maize is coming from and how it's going to be stored. So, Madam Speaker, I want to make it very clear that instead of now talking about GMO, let's talk about the future, because we have enough. Like somebody mentioned, we can now say, we can now be encouraged. The price of maize that we have expected was about 6,000 shillings. Give us 6,000 shillings, we release the maize to whatever store they are. If it's Trans Nzoia, we have enough stores in Trans Nzoia, empty stores in Trans Nzoia, and of course even Western Kishu, Western Province. Then let's now work on introduction of crops that grow to maturity that can take less than 3-4 months. There's that short spell, I don't know what they call it, Katumani, I'm told. Introduce the crops that we can grow ourselves, indigenous crop, instead of getting things that I don't even know where they're coming from. I can tell you, every day, Madam Speaker, we are burying people, and it's because of cancer. We don't know whether that's because of the GMO we're talking about. It comes in fruits, whatever. We are eating wrong things. So, Madam Speaker, all in all, we have enough maize. And therefore, let's now ask members, farmers in the region. We can even help the ministries. We can go back to our areas and tell the farmers to sell the maize to the National Cereals Board. Keep that maize. That maize is more than enough for the next 6-7 months. Then, of course, we could be having another harvest. So this question of this GMO, if they have imported and it's in Mombasa, this House should reject. The maize could be returned to where it's coming from, because we have enough of that maize. Madam Speaker, I also want to talk about irrigation. Let's have irrigation. No, there's a dry spell, but we are experiencing rain now. We can have irrigation in areas where, like a canal, what is it called? Canal Kulalu, where we have a lot of land. And go to Trans Nzoia. Trans Nzoia, we have ATC farms that are lying fallow. And I was yesterday, I managed to meet the managing director of ATC, and we talked about it. Please, there's no shortage of food in this country, unless somebody has got other interests, which of course, we don't want to say what it is, but we know that can also be a reason why they are urging that we actually import maize. For that, Madam Speaker, I want to say we should not allow, and I hope and believe that members here will reject that offer, and the maize can be returned to where it's coming from. I don't know where. They haven't even told us. I don't know where. Whatever it's coming from, I think unless there's an interest. I have no problem with my friend, the current minister. I have no problem, he has been here. But that is a wrong move, and we reject totally. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Tigania West, Honorable John Mutunga. If not in the House, member for Keses, Honorable Julius Ruto. If not in the House, member for Mgwen, Joses Lelmegit.
Okay, thank you for indulging me, Honorable Speaker. I rise to concur with the Member of Parliament for Mosop, Honorable Kirwa, and support this motion that he has tabled in this House. Madam Speaker, we would like to ask the government, led by CS, the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Moses Kuria, to cease the importation of this maize, because as a Member of Parliament for Mgwen, as a representative of farmers back at home who have toiled hard, who have used a lot of costly farm input to plant maize, and now it's an harvesting season. I don't see the reason why the government should import maize, yet we have maize with the farmers in stores. I don't think it's the right time. The CS is putting the cart before the horses, simply because I would think that he would have waited for the maize reserves to be depleted so that he can import the deficit, probably early next year, probably in March or April next year, when he knows exactly how many bags that is of deficit. On the issue of GMO, we don't need to rush until we have proper laws, policies, and rules and regulations to govern the importation of GMO's food. The other issue is on the importation. I want to ask a question: is the importation meant to lower the cost of maize, or is it meant to cap the shortage of maize in this country? For that reason, we want to ask the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade if they would explain as to why they made that decision to import the GMO maize into this country. Yet, our farmers back at home, they were expecting to reap from the difficulty of the corona season and the high farm inputs. They thought that, thinking that they would make good money to continue with their businesses. I treat farming as a business, and with the spirit of bottom-up. This is against the spirit of bottom-up, because no country has ever developed without pursuing agriculture. And so we have to encourage our farmers to continue farming so that we can have sufficient food in this country, and not discourage them by importing maize, which will discourage them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Chesumei, Honorable Paul Biego.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise also to support what Honorable Abraham Kirwa has put on the floor of the House. I think I echo the sentiments that other members have said, and in line to his motion is that as we come from the Rift Valley, the maize growing areas, and this time is time for harvesting. We have bumper harvest, and actually we don't understand why this had to happen this particular time. As the representatives of the people who are farmers, the people who are growing maize, it's quite unfortunate that such a decision can be made. And we are left to wonder why this kind of decision, or why this kind of instructions are being given at a time when it's harvest time. So to me, and I know to my other colleagues, we would like to tell the CS that it is wrong timing, and we have to get our maths right, the numbers right. Let's get to know, is there really any deficit as at now? Because of course the farmers who spent a lot of money in terms of producing that maize would lose. And once we get the imports to the country, then for sure it will lower the prices of our the maize that has been harvested right now. So I think together with my other colleagues, I really support that the importation is wrong timed, and that it should not be done at this particular point in time. In fact, it is a time when we are expecting our government to be able to buy maize from the farmers, and it's just the wrong time, Madam Speaker. So I've really stood to say that I'm not supporting the importation of maize at this particular point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next chance will go to the member for Kipkelion East, Honorable Joseph Cherorot. If not in the House, it will go to the member for Kericho, Honorable Beatrice Kemei. If not, it will go to the Honorable member for Narok, Honorable Rebecca Tonke.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, don't know why the honorable member is very excited, But Madam Speaker, nevertheless, I stand also to support the motion that we should not have maize importation, because, Madam Speaker, the farmers are really suffering. And this issue whereby when farmers have bumper harvest and they expect the government to buy maize from them, then we have people importing maize, is actually taking our people backward. Madam Speaker, when you look at Narok, where I come from, Madam Speaker, kindly tell the honorable members to...
Honorable member for Narok, please address the speaker.
Madam Speaker, you know, Emilio Tiambo is talking at a loud voice, so I can't even communicate. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I was saying that the people of Narok have, are also victims of this issue of importation. Because when you look at sugar, Madam Speaker, our people from Kilgoris do plant sugarcane. And when they plant sugarcane and then we import sugar, we find them having sugarcane not harvested for 24 months. Madam Speaker, it's the same thing that the government comes in, import maize, import sugar, and the farmers there suffer. So we want to actually support this motion so that our people get to harvest their produce and let them get market to sell. Madam Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. This chance will go to the member for Funyula, Dr. Wilberforce Oundo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for this. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute on this emotive motion. For it is value that has brought this matter on the debate in the national floor. I support and I appreciate the mover of the motion. Honorable Speaker, the issue of GMO has been a debate with us for many, many years. It has metamorphosed from one level to another, from traditional seeds to hybrid seeds. We are not talking about genetically modified organisms of various scale and type. Probably this informs the decision why in 2009, this country, this National Assembly or this Parliament passed the Biosafety Act number 2 of 2009 that sets out the grounds, the process and approach to ensure that any genetically modified product or organism is registered in this country. Question of safety, question of all those related to safety are clearly covered. Of course, there was a ban in 2010 of GMO issued by the then minister, I think it was Bet Mugo. That ban has subsisted for all these years until probably 2019, when there's a partial lifting in respect of BT cotton. Of course, it's telling that when the new Kenya Kwanza government came into place, they lifted the order that was initiated, that was placed in 2010. The question that we beg to ask, and this is a question that we need answers as soon as possible, was the lifting of the ban in compliance with the provisions of the Biosafety Act number 2 of 2009. That is something they need to tell us. Has there been adequate research? Has there been adequate safeguards to basically solve this problem? Probably in a bigger and a wider debate, is GMO of any nature a pinnacle to perpetual food security challenges in this country? Is it a response to climatic change? What is the positives and what are the negatives? Are we able to feed this world with the traditional ways of food production and agriculture? Those are the questions the scientists should come and tell us that we are safe or not. As it stands now, there hasn't been any communication from the authority established by Biosafety Act in respect of the security and safety of the food that we are looking about here. Honorable Speaker, I have listened to the debate so far, and the debate seems to be getting muddled up between commercial interest of maize farmers and the safety of imported maize. It would have been probably right to have allowed the two motions to run separately so that we discuss the issue of safety of GMO and separate it from the commercial interest of maize farmers. Honorable Speaker, it is on record that Kenyans are dying of hunger. It is on record that many parts of this country are having a severe problem of food deficiency. It is again an embarrassment to this society that there are places where we have abundant food that's actually being rotten. We have cases where they're hoarding staple food like maize, hoping to get better prices. Honorable Speaker, in a liberalized economy, we must be alive to the tenets and theories of supply and demand and the theories of pricing. Any consumer would prefer more for less. For sure, it is untenable, it is unfair to hold maize and fail to pay to release it in the market so that we can feed starving Kenyans. I would urge the farmers, wherever they are, you need to go back to the theory of production. Produce what you can sell in the market based on the market prices. Assistance, Honorable Speaker, even our colleagues here have admitted they have been hoarding maize. We know the days where we could punish such kind of behaviors are long gone, but probably we need to introduce that kind of measures so that we punish those people who hoard maize and cause national security, because you are hurting us lawyers and people who eat all the ugalis. You have something against us, and we'll sort it out in 2027. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kabondo Kasipul, Honorable Ivo Barra.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I too stand to support the motion. Madam Speaker, I have two issues. Number one is the timing and the speed of lightning at which these matters were being progressed. Madam Speaker, in 2012, it was banned through, the GMO was banned through a Gazette notice. Hardly 2 months in office, the new government has decided to lift the ban, and before we even blink, there is maize that is coming at the port. Madam Speaker, there was no public participation, and we did not see any gazettement of the same. Two, we are aware as a country that there was bumper harvest, mainly in the Rift Valley, and even within my constituency, which is also a breadbasket, in Kabondo Kasipul, we had maize. Madam Speaker, it is unfair. I would say that it is cold and being insensitive to the needs of our farmers to import maize at the time when they have maize in the store and not give them an opportunity to sell their maize at a fair price. Yes, it could be expensive, but why is the maize expensive? The maize is expensive because of the cost of production. Fertilizers were going for over 6,000 shillings, we are all aware of. We are also aware that the fuel price had gone up to plow our fields. With all these things combined, I would have expected the government to be sensitive and allow the farmers to sell the maize first before they even think of importing the maize. I would recommend that, one, they return the maize from wherever it came from, or two, should it find its way in the market, Madam Speaker, this maize should be clearly labeled as GMO so that the Kenyans can decide that they are buying the GMO or they are not buying, and properly segregated in the supermarket to show that these are all GMO and these are not, so that Kenyans can make an informed decision when purchasing the maize. Thank you very much. Once again, I support, and I want us as a country to take care of our people. Kenya can feed its people, we don't have to beg for food, and we don't have to bring food that is not fit for human consumption. Thank you very much.
I'll say it. The next chance I'll give to the member for Tetu, Honorable Geoffrey Mwangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also rein in on this debate. Though, Madam Speaker, I feel like we are discussing two things in one. One is the issue of the safety or lack of it of GMOs, and the second one is whether we should be importing maize at all, GMO or otherwise. Madam Speaker, I think we are all aware that this country is going through fairly tough famine and depressed rainfall. My people in Teto, Madam Speaker, are going through the 5th season without sufficient rain, which has left them food secure. And this is something that is also replicated in a number of other places across our beautiful republic. And so the issue of food security, the issue of food sufficiency is a very, very important matter. And what I feel is going on here is that farmers in certain parts of this country have had a good harvest, but they cannot sell their maize because they do not believe that the prices being offered in the market are sufficient. And Madam Speaker, it is important here to say that in this country, unless farming continues or unless farming makes economic sense, we are staring at a very bleak future. The average age of farmers, you know, is about 60. The young and the ones who are able and who have the knowledge have all but abandoned farming. And the food security in this country, the future of food security in this country is bleak. So we must start addressing, and the government must take seriously, when farmers say they cannot sell their maize because they feel the prices are below the market price. We must come in and see what to do to ensure that farmers can sell their maize profitably, because that is the only way we can continue incentivizing them to report to the farms and continue to produce food for the rest of the country. So I ask the government to look at what is going on in the market, increase the prices where possible, so that our farmers, they do not need any urging. When the prices are right, they will deliver the maize to the market, and there will be food sufficiency in the country. On the matter of GMO, Madam Speaker, I feel that this is an issue which even most people, depending on who you talk to, today maybe you are a believer in GMO, tomorrow you are an unbeliever. Because there is just so much that is said about these GMOs. And maybe debating this matter on the floor of the House, while good, may, some of us come from different backgrounds. You have accountants here, you have, marketers, and we are all attempting to discuss what is an otherwise very deep scientific issue. Maybe, Madam Speaker, what we need to do in this country is to lock some scientists in a room until they give us either white smoke or black smoke on GMO, so that we have a unified stand that is not politically aligned, so that I do not talk about the positivity or negativity of GMO depending on which side of the political divide I stand in. I speak about it depending, based on facts, based on figures, based on empirical evidence of whether there are any issues to do with GMO. A casual look, however, at GMO is that it is something we are already consuming. And there is, nothing that maybe has been raised that is, empirically substantiated against a GMO. So it is very, very important that here we are guided by science. And I don't know what guidance, Madam Speaker, you could give, because this is something that this House must address, not just for this motion that is on the floor of the House, but subsequently to rest this matter of GMOs once and for all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Nyando.
I thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity
And we are discussing twin issues here. The first issue relates to the genetically modified food, which has become a subject of discussion the last few days in this country. And number two, the opaque importation of certain maize consignment in this country. And I want to distinguish and isolate these twin issues. Number one, Honorable Speaker, whereas it is now common knowledge that there are 10,000 metric tons of maize at the port of Mombasa, the question that goes around, one, is whose consignment is it? Number two, when was tender for importation of this consignment flouted, and who won this tender? Number three, who ordered for this maize to be brought into this country, Madam Speaker? And it is coming at a backdrop of harvesting going on within the Rift Valley and other parts of this country, Honorable Speaker. What would then happen to the farmers in these regions? They just got heavily subsidized fertilizer from the government just the other day, and the fertilizer was meant to cushion farmers against the skyrocketing prices of farm implements. And today, they are harvesting when the same government that should protect them is bringing in food consignment into this country. So whereas we acknowledge that certain times regimes eat their own children, and we have seen them eating them right now in Rift Valley, courtesy of this importation, choices also have consequences, and these are the consequences that we just have now to live with. Honorable Speaker, the GMO has become so discordant, and each and every side of the divide you
What is out of order, Honorable Naomi Wako?
I hope I'll get my minutes, Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to give this point of order. Is it in order when the honorable member is just referring to the current government as, you know, the government that is eating its own people? Because what the government is doing is caring for its people, and we know that many people are already suffering because they have no food on their, you know, at homes, and many people have survived on GMO. So I think I'm just asking whether that is in order for him to refer to the government as the government that is eating its own people.
Honorable Okello.
The timekeeper, kindly give me those 2 minutes. Well, I was taken aback this afternoon listening to members of Parliament and members of the Senate from the Rift Valley castigating their own government for importing food consignment. So if people from Rift Valley can make that noise in a government that they were dancing to just 2 months ago, what else does it mean if not a government eating its own children, Yawa? Or how do we put it? So, Madam Speaker, the GMO, as I said, has become discordant. You know, you hear from scientists who are totally against it. You hear other scientists also are for the GMO. But, you know, trivializing the genetically modified food to buttress the point that instead of people dying hungry, you'd rather give them something that will kill them slowly. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. If our scientists have been part and parcel of a discussion that has, you know, passed a poor verdict on GMO, then as a country we have to go slow. If the Western world is trying to push it into the African market, and that is their intent, whereas you have more people in America, 350 million people, only coming to target 50 million people in Kenya. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. You look at the element of transportation alone, all the way from the US overseas to Kenya. It doesn't make sense to me. And therefore, any discussion around GMO now, when our farmers are also subjected to some kind of ill treatment, I think should stop. And therefore, the Committee of Agriculture, which I believe will be receiving this report and will carry out some background check, needs to move speedily to put this matter to rest, Madam Speaker. I listened to Waziri, and I have heard people castigating him when he said, Waziri of Trade, my friend Honorable Moses Kuria, when he said, in any event, when you live in Kenya, there are many agents of death, and therefore adding GMO food isn't so bad. So in itself, the government has acknowledged that this is a bad thing. Then why force through our throats something that is already bad and has been declared so by the government? So we need to look at this thing comprehensively. I was very happy yesterday listening to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, putting this government on notice that this is not the right way to go. And we have to apply brakes where necessary, avoid GMO as much as we can, and let us protect our indigenous seeds and our farmers at the same time. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
This chance will go to the Chair of Agriculture Committee, Honorable Mutunga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this motion. Honorable Speaker, I think we are speaking about many things, but the motion is about importation or barring importation of GMOs. Honorable Speaker, I think the first thing I will try to clarify is the difference between GMO and the BT maize. Genetic engineering is a branch of science, a branch of biotechnology. Biotechnology is the broader sense of that science, of the broader spectrum, and genetic engineering, in a narrow sense, has to do with transfer of genes from one organism to another. The type of gene that can move from one organism to another is normally called a recombinant gene. It has to have that characteristic of being able to combine with the genes of that other organism. Honorable Speaker, GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, are all organisms, all forms of organisms, whether animals or plants, which have had their gene composition changed. All of them. Honorable Speaker, there is no evidence anywhere in the world, anywhere in any discourse, any scientific discourse or otherwise, to show that all GMOs are dangerous to human or dangerous to the environment. In this particular case, we are talking of a GMO called BT maize. And I will narrow my discussion specifically to the BT maize. BT maize is maize that has been made to protect itself through genetic transformation from the stalk borer, called maize stalk borer. This protection has been brought about by extracting a gene from a bacteria that is found in the soil. The soil outside there, Honorable Speaker, has that bacteria. The bacteria is called Bacillus thuringiensis. This particular bacteria has the characteristic of killing the stalk borer. The stalk borer is the larval form in the stages of development of these insects. There is the larval stage, the worm stage, the one that basically bores through the maize, the stalk of the maize, and therefore it has to be controlled by use of chemicals. What science has done is identified this bacteria which has the poison to kill this particular stalk borer. That is the only transformation that has been done to the normal maize, introducing this particular gene which makes the maize resistant to this particular worm or this particular larvae stage of the pest. Honorable Speaker, there are several things that come into play when you change the form of an organism. That is, you make it a GMO. Therefore, BT maize, it is called BT maize because it has the gene of a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis. That is why it is BT, Bacillus, and then thuringiensis T.
Order. Honorable Jared Okelo, what is out of order?
Honorable Speaker, I thank you. I do not really intend to cut short my very knowledgeable chair. and he has been introduced as the chair of agriculture. And I like his in-depth knowledge about this. But suffice to say, this matter will actually be appearing before him, so that as a committee, he will be bringing a comprehensive report to this House, for or against. But his defense of the entire GMO feeds into the resultant feature of what we expect from this House, Honorable Speaker. Whereas I'm really enjoying, the knowledge around the bacillus, all the microbes and all those. But I think it may...
But Honorable Jared Okello, does the fact that he's the chair of Agriculture Committee take away his right as the representative of the people who brought him here?
Well, just like a judge sitting before a court of law, or rather to litigate a matter, and the judge takes a particular direction, just like what we saw during the Supreme Court decision the other day, when judges were calling things like hot air and wild goose chase and those other things. So when somebody who needs to sit on a matter already begins earlier in the morning to defend that same matter, which should be before him to litigate properly and prosecute to conclusion, I'm not demeaning him. I mean, I'm really enjoying the scientific terms that he's using to describe this. I'm not a scientist, but I'm really enjoying. But I'm also taking the part of caution that we need not to go that direction. Otherwise, we may spoil the report that this House is awaiting, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, but Honorable Jared Okello, I think you are exaggerating the powers of a chair of a committee. The chair of a committee is like the speaker speaking with you now. He does not decide. He presides over the meetings of the committee. And in that meeting, the members have their decisions to make, and he does not have any casting vote there. Yeah, so Honorable Mutunga, proceed. Yes, Honorable Mutunga will proceed, and Honorable Mutunga allowed you 1 minute because your 1 minute has been taken away. Yeah, but it was still a very innovative issue, Honorable Jared Okello.
Excuse me. Speaker, I think the member is completely out of order because he does not even want to take time to understand the difference between GMO and BT maize. We are talking about BT maize here. What has been imported is BT maize. That is the GMO everybody is talking about. But GMO can lead to total transformation of an organism. That's not what we are talking about. BMO is the broader sense of any organism that has been transformed. Organism. Honorable Speaker, I would not like to be corrected by anyone. Can you protect me from any kind of disruption?
Honorable Mutunga, you know, in law we have this doctrine called volenti non fit injuria. You've invited the problems to yourself. You cannot enjoy any protection from me. Add him 1 minute to conclude.
No. Honorable Speaker, I don't think I've spent my time. He has spent most of my time. And I have not said anything. Honorable Speaker, I don't think it is fair for that member to spend my time.
I've given you an additional minute.
Honorable Speaker, I think that is not fair. Being the chairman of agriculture does not make me, the knowledge I have, disappear from my head. It doesn't also deny me the opportunity to tell Kenyans the truth. And the truth is that BT maize is not, it's not in any case anything. It is a specific type of maize which Americans have eaten for 30 years. Are we trying to say that Kenyans have better, they have more special lives than Americans, than Australians, than Canadians? If there is a country that protects its people, those countries protect their people. We are talking of BT maize.
Honorable Moses Kirima is on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have been told since we came to this parliament that when one arranges, must have a way of proving it. Do we have and does my learned friend, my colleague, have a way of proving to us that the Americans have been consuming GMO maize for the last 30 years? Because we must have undocumented evidence. Whoever arranges must prove.
And on further point of order.
Yes.
Further point of order.
Honorable Mutunga.
The internet and look for Bacillus thuringiensis
whether it is dangerous, and BT maize. And they also see America has eaten that particular maize for 30 years. It is already documented. We are not talking about things here. These are not hearsays. Let us not mislead the nation forever. We stopped importation of this 10 years ago. We were talking about GMOs 20 years ago. We are always saying there is not enough time. We said we have no capacity. We have capacity in KU, we have capacity in JKUAT, we have capacity in Kari, we have capacity in KEFIS. What is wrong with this country? We have to keep on going round and round, sensationalizing anything. Honourable Speaker, we are all getting out of order because we are not using knowledge to inform our decision making. We are using emotion and sensationalism to inform our decision making, and it is wrong. As a professional in this particular field, I will stand and say it is wrong. Let us use science to guide us to move forward. We cannot say we do science up to a certain level. Science is unlimited. Let us see what opportunities there are to help these people, our people. If nobody has ever died, nobody has ever been sick, the environment has never changed. I am an authority in environment. It has never affected any environment. So why are we saying that it is dangerous? What is the danger? Point to the danger, point at the danger. Let me talk about importation. It could be wrong to import any maize right now.
Just a minute. The question Honorable Kirima is asking is this, Honorable Mutunga, and if you answered it in a minute, we would proceed. Is your duty as a member of parliament here to the citizens of Kenya or to the citizens of America? That is the question I had, Honorable Kirima, too. And I think it's a very straightforward one. If you can answer it, we will give time to the next person to speak.
Give me time to answer the question.
1 minute only for him to answer.
Okay, 1 minute to answer the question. I said there is no proof of any danger. And I said people like us, who have DNAs like us, who have blood like us in our system, in the systems like ours, have eaten this for 30 years. And I gave a specific example, and it is documented. Just look through, you will see it. So what else? What other proof does the member need? Honourable Speaker, it is wrong to import when we have surplus. When we have glut, we shall depress the prices. But if we do not have enough, it is in order for the government to import maize. Let people not sit here and say we should watch at maize skyrocketing because we want to protect a small section of this country to sell their maize fast before you can import. We need to arrange, it's called supplies management. We need to manage it well. We need to have people feed. We need as many bags of maize as there is the population of Kenya. That is the simple arithmetic in terms of the maize balance sheet.
You made your point, Honorable Mutunga, the Chair of Agriculture Committee. May we have the MP for Kisumu West, Honorable Rosa Buyu.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Kenyans watching us on TV today are very happy Kenyans. Because for the first time in a long, long time, the two sides of parliament or political divide have come together to protect their lives. The constitution that we passed in 2010 by over 67% majority mandated and gave the responsibility to the government to protect the lives of every Kenyan. In no article whatsoever do you find the government being mandated to look for new ways in which Kenyans can die. So when you have a minister in the government actually coming up to applaud GMO because it's a new way that Kenyans can die from, it is unfortunate. Instead of protecting lives, the government is spending its time looking for opportunities and different innovative methods through which Kenyans can die. So depression, hunger, cancer, and all other things that currently kill Kenyans are not enough causes. The government must still look for yet another cause. Mr. Speaker, that makes me a very sad Kenyan. It makes me wonder what this bottom-up philosophy is all about. Because during campaigns, we were told that bottoms-up is actually elevating and bringing up the vulnerable people in the society so that they can also feel like they're people in this society. But with one hand, the government will subsidize fertilizers so that Kenyans or the farmers can actually enjoy a better yield and surplus yield. But when that happens, then they kill you with the other hand by importing GMO that will obviously suppress sales of any of the yields that you've had. So what is the government doing? It is actually spending money that it doesn't need to spend. Because when you subsidize fertilizers, it comes from the money that the government has collected from its people. But then on the other hand, when we've used that money well, and we've planted our maize, and we've got surplus, where we are supposed to enjoy the impact of subsidies from fertilizers, you are actually bringing in GMO or other maize to suppress what we've already had. So the government really does not know what it's doing. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that today we've seen our brothers and sisters crying in many parts of the country where they've enjoyed good yields. They are crying and saying...
Order, Honorable Rosa Buyu. Honorable Naomi Wako, what is out of order?
I respect Mheshimiwa Rosa, and she's my good friend. But, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for her to say that the government does not know what it's doing when this is the government that is leading the country and doing its best to serve the people?
Honorable Rosa Buyu.
I think we are here to speak. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you. But I think in this House, we are here to give our opinion. And that is a matter of opinion. She can defend that government because she respects and thinks it's doing a good job. I can choose to respect the people of Kenya who are crying for the sweat and the effort that they've put in that is now being trashed because the government has decided to bring in GMO maize. Mr. Speaker, we've watched many Kenyans die, very slow, painful deaths. And if there is any iota of suspicion that GMO could lead to slow deaths of Kenyans, why on earth would the government ignore that and decide that it's going to go on anyway and import GMO maize? Wouldn't the government, if it was responsible, take its time, let the debate go on, put more effort on finding the reality of GMO maize before it hurriedly brings in the maize to kill more Kenyans? Mr. Speaker, I know I come from an area where we don't grow too much maize, but I'm standing here as a Kenyan because what Rift Valley suffers from, all Kenyans will also suffer from that. So don't tell me that I should not speak, I should speak about fish because I know nothing about maize. I'm speaking as a Kenyan. And I'm requesting the government to put Kenyans first, because when it doesn't, it actually points to some cartel trying to bring money and trying to take advantage of the drought and the suffering that Kenyans are currently undergoing so that they can make a kill. Many parts of this country have actually come out to say that they have a lot of maize. The government, all the government has to do is to find a way of moving that maize from where it's surplus and take it to the parts of the country that is actually experiencing drought so that no Kenyan can die of hunger. But instead, the government finds it much easier not to move and mop the maize from within the country, Kenya, but finds it much easier to import maize from afar. If that is not an action of a group of cartels, then I don't know what is. Mr. Speaker, I support the motion by Mr. Honorable Kirwa that under no circumstance should we approve the importation of GMO maize into the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Rosa Buyu. Honorable Samuel Moroto, MP for Kapenguria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity to add my voice. I stand to support the motion because from experience, Mr. Speaker, there are just some questions I'm asking myself. What made it that time when this thing was put aside, the GMO issue, by the government? And what has come up now, that now we are lifting whatever we ban, and we are bringing in without any explanation. This is what Kenyans want to know. I remember early, mid-1970s, the coffee farmers were doing very well until when there was a black market which started in Chepkube. Chepkube is in Uganda, but bordering Kenya and Uganda, for coffee. All the people who are supposed to buy our products, the coffee from Kenya, were going to take from there. And that one, it brought the farming of coffee down. Up to now, the farmers there are crying. The same to this one here. There were scientists who were there before. And they came through, and they read, and they came and advised the government. And that's when the government came and banned the GMO supplies. Now, I don't know what kind of other scientists who have come now to advise the current government to go back and open without even bringing the, alerting people and giving people reasons why they are starting this GMO or want to bring GMO. Some of us come from areas where we are depending on relief food. But we cannot accept the food that will come and kill us. We better fight with our anger than getting something that a poison that will come and hurry our lives, Mr. Speaker. We need to be serious here. We are Kenyans and we are the representatives of the people. Around from 1997 to 2002, the price of maize came down just because of the system. I remember even a bag of maize was selling at 300. It's only when Kibaki came in between 2003 to 2007, is it? I think so. That is when the prices went up to 2,000 plus of a bag. So we need to reason and forget about politics when we are here. Let us care about the lives of the people. And go to history. What made these people, what made government at that time to ban the GMO food? And what has come now that somebody can stand just in a meeting, only about 20 to 25 people deciding. In fact, we are more in this house than what they had in their cabinet meeting. Mr. Speaker, I'm a Christian, and we always deal with the sins. We cannot encourage. When things are going wrong, we say this is wrong. When things are going good, we say yes. I come from West Pokot in Kapenguria. It's just a neighboring Trans Nzoia. I have also some farms I'm farming in Trans Nzoia. Like my colleague from Kwanza said, I also have 1,900 bags in the store. Because we fear. So, because I fear to sell out at this throwaway price, and I harvested many, and I used a lot of money to bring this maize up. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the motion and ask the Agriculture Committee and all of us here to engage even the government and the minister so that they cannot play with us now. This is early. The government is beginning now. So if they miss early like this, how they...
The MP for Kilgore is the Honorable Julius Olesunkuli.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also stand to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, there are, of course, the twin problems. One of them is about the food sufficiency and the need to import maize. And then there is the GMO issue. And if I may begin with the GMO issue, Mr. Speaker, it has been said in this House that what we should follow is scientific research and scientific findings. And that would be very attractive, Mr. Speaker. And members, quite eminent members, have said here that whenever there is a doubt on scientific findings, it is better to err on the side of safety. There is no need, when you know that there is a possibility that a substance is poisonous, that then you take a risk of taking it. And I have listened to one member who is the chairman of agriculture utter very, very scientific terminology. Unfortunately, I did not get an opportunity to say on a point of order that it was absolutely out of order to quote scientific findings without acknowledging who was the source. Everybody here who is talking about scientific findings has not quoted any scientists that I know about. Because today, we grow maize in Transmara. We grow a variety called 614. We grow very many other varieties. These varieties have been developed by scientists of Kenya. And they have been planting several variations of indigenous crop. In Kenya, we actually have a Kenya seed company that carefully and meticulously develops seed. But what is happening today is that we are being told that there is science that comes from the United States of America that says that GMO is safe. And this raises an issue. And first of all, we shouldn't actually be calling it GMO because it is not bringing it out clearly. This is genetically modified organisms, so that you don't lose the track of what we are saying. To start with, in the United States of America, maize is not a staple food. In fact, a substantial component of maize is consumed by animals. And if the scientists in America have found that GMO is safe, I don't know to what extent we can rely on that evidence when indeed we require maize to make ugali and sometimes to make our porridge or githeri. We want it for real life, not for our animals. So I would like to urge, Mr. Speaker, that we do not just plead science before we actually know who the scientists are. The European Union has legislation on genetically modified organisms. And the main purpose of that legislation is to protect humans, to protect animals, and to protect the environment. But in 2015, the European Union actually passed a law which allowed countries to make a choice as to whether they they should grow genetically modified foods. And many countries, Germany, Greece, Italy, Poland, and Scotland, elected not to grow GMO plants. However, the European Union has been importing from the United States soya beans, which are genetically modified. But this is purely for animal consumption. The developed countries, the main countries of the West, minus the United States, do not sing this GMO tune. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, that if we are relying on science, we had better rely on our own scientists. Otherwise, our scientists are sleeping on the job, They ought to come in front of everything else. And lastly, we should be hearing from the Ministry of Agriculture, not the Ministry of Trade, because this is not really just a trade affair. It is a matter for our food. I support.
The MP for Central Imenti, the Honorable Moses Kirima.
Speaker, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this very important motion which affects Kenyans. I thereby, Mr. Speaker, sir, support the motion as brought by my colleague on this animal called GMO. The importation of maize in this country is meant to alleviate the hunger and the starvation of many Kenyans in various parts of the country. And it was through the Minister for Trade, my friend Moses Kuria, who indicated in black and white that they are going to import GMO maize. We have no reason of why we are to doubt Moses Kuria that the maize they are going to import is GMO, because there is no other things which have been brought to the contrary to show that it's different maize, as it has been tried to be shown by the chairman of agriculture. He has come up with different terminologies as relates to this maize, but still it does not convince Kenyans that it's any different from the GMO maize which every Kenyan or every around person in Kenya is rooting against, because we have been informed that GMO is a genetic modified food, and that genetic modified food is not suitable for human consumption because it comes with some effects to the human health. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's common knowledge that Kenyans, most of the Kenyans these days, are spending their money on health matters, mainly cancer. If one is not affected, he is infected by the cancer problem. And we have been told that this scientific interference of the modern life has really contributed to these changes which takes place naturally, and they end up making people victims of cancer problem. And if you go to almost every family in Kenya now, people have been impoverished purely by this disease called cancer. And when this GMO comes to Kenya, it means that Kenyans are going to consume this maize, and when they consume this maize, it's going to make this problem of cancer rise up. Yes, we have maize in the Rift Valley region, which has just been harvested, and you have heard from other colleagues of mine here that they also are holding this maize even in their houses. But now, what is the government going to do to assist the farmers who have bump harvest in the northern Rift Valley to have this maize come out of the market, so that it's a good maize which has been grown up here in Kenya through the natural way, which has not been interfered with, and it is a maize which should be given to the market through the government, whereby the government is supposed to pay for this maize. Now, we have been hearing through the various members of the Department of Agriculture that America has been consuming GMO maize. Those who have traveled to America before, those who have learned about America, they know that in America, maize is animal feed. It's meant to be for animal feeding. It's used to make animal feeds in America. But now, what is being consumed there by animals in the Western world, mainly America, is coming here to be consumed by Kenyans. Even though we are desperate, we have a dignity to protect. Even though we have a problem, our Constitution, Article 24 up to 26, talk of dignified life. And this dignified life is only the government which can assist us to have this dignified life by having maize which is proper, especially the one which is grown in Kenya and especially in the Rift Valley, to be bought by the government to be distributed to the Kenyans. Otherwise, this motion as it is now, I support it because, sincerely, as it is now, if this maize is brought to Kenya, it's going to make Kenyans suffer. And by the way, it's just 2 days ago when we have been told that this maize is going to be imported. How comes that it is already at the port of Mombasa? it means that it was already a predetermined issue. What are you going to do with these cartels? We were fighting these cartels when we were saying that we want to change in this government. Does it mean that we inherited the same cartels who are still going on with, as they call it in government, is it state capture? No, Mr. Speaker. Lest this GMO maize not come to Kenya.
Mjumbe wa Likoni, Mheshimiwa Mishi Mboko.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Hata mimi nasimama kuunga mkono hoja hii ambayo imetolewa na Mheshimiwa mwenzangu. Kwa hakika sisi kama taifa tuna jukumu la kulinda afya ya Wakenya, na pia kuna jukumu ya kuangalia uchumi wa wakulima wa taifa letu la Kenya. Na kwanza nina masikitiko makubwa sana kwa matamshi ya waziri alipoongea na kusema ya kwamba iwapo Wakenya wamekuwa wakipata vifo kwa njia tofauti, basi kupata vifo kupitia vyakula hivi vya GMO hakuna tashwishi. Hayo ni matamshi ambayo ni aibu sana kwa yametoka kwa kiongozi ambaye ni waziri katika taifa la Kenya. Nataka nizungumzie ya kwamba katika taifa la Kenya tuna taasisi zetu za kisayansi, na taasisi yetu ya KEMRI kwa wakati mmoja waliweza kufanya utafiti na kuona ya kwamba vyakula hivi ambavyo vinatokana na njia ya GMO ni vyakula ambavyo vina athari katika maisha ya mwanadamu na pia athari katika maisha ya wanyama. Na vile vile pia tukiangalia nchi nyingine za Afrika na hata nchi zingine katika Europa, pia wameweza kupiga marufuku vyakula kama hivi, vikiwemo kama hayo mahindi ya GMO. Tukiangalia Ufaransa, tukiangalia Italy, tukiangalia Croatia, hizo ni nchi ambazo zimebobea ama ni nchi ambazo zimestawi sana, na pia wao hawakuweza kukubali vyakula kama hivyo. Vile vile hata hapa Afrika, Zimbabwe ni nchi ambayo imekuwa na ukame mkali sana, lakini hata hivyo hawakuweza kukubaliana na kuleta vyakula kama hivi kwa sababu waliangalia janga ambalo litaletwa na vyakula kama hivi. Na tukiangalia vyakula kama hivi katika utafiti wa wanasayansi vimesema vinaweza kuleta changamoto za kimazingira, zinaweza kuleta changamoto za kiafya kama kuleta maradhi ya saratani. Vile vile pia zinaweza kuleta mambo ile tunaita mzio. Mzio kwa wale ambao hawatafahamu ni allergies, ambapo mtu akiweza kutumia chakula chochote ikiwemo hiyo mahindi anaweza kupata madhara kama hayo. Vile vile nataka niweze kusema katika mambo haya GMO, hapo nyuma kuna watu ambao waliweza kutengeza mchele wa kawaida na kuongezea vitamini zaidi na kuita mchele wa dhahabu. Na mchele huu katika utafiti umeonyesha kwamba uliweza kufanya wale waliotumia kupata upofu na hata wengine kupoteza maisha. Na hizo zote ni mambo ambayo yameangaliwa na wanasayansi na ikatoa utafiti. Vile vile swali ni kujiuliza ya kwamba je, ni mswada gani ama kwa Kiingereza bill, a clean bill, ambayo imeweza kutolewa kuthibitisha ya kwamba vyakula hivi ikiwemo hayo mahindi ambayo ni vya GMO vitakuwa havina madhara katika afya ya mwanadamu na pia madhara katika afya ya mnyama yoyote. Na tukiangalia utafiti wote ambao umetolewa, mwingi unasema ya kwamba vyakula hivi vina madhara, na si madhara tu ya sasa, lakini ni madhara ya kuendelea. Tukiangalia pia katika hali ya uchumi, wakulima wetu, tukiangalia sehemu za Kitale, tukiangalia sehemu za Bonde la Ufa ambao wana mvua na ni watu ambao wanalima mahindi kwa wingi sana, leo tuweze kuleta mahindi haya ambayo yametengezwa katika njia ya uhandisi jeni wa vyakula. Hiyo ndo tunatafsiri kwa Kiingereza GMO. Hawa wakulima wetu hawataweza kuangaliwa tena sana na serikali, na pia kutakuwa na uzembevu ama utepetea ambao watakuwa ni watu, na kwamba kuna mahindi mengine ambayo yanakuja ya rahisi, basi hatutakuwa na haja ya kuangalia wakulima hawa. Na sisi kama Wakenya lazima tuangalie njia za kuweza kukuza vyakula, tuangalie njia ya kunyunyiza maji ile tunaita irrigation, tuangalie njia ya kuweza kuhifadhi maji ambayo yamekuwa mengi kutokana na mvua, kutokana na mafuriko, tuweze kuyaweka pia visima, pia ile misara, na tuweze pia kuboresha wakulima wetu kwa kuwapatia mbolea na kuwapatia njia ya kuweza kupata mikopo ili tuweze kupata vyakula kama taifa la Kenya. Mimi nataka niseme, kama ingekuwa GMO ni chakula ama ni vyakula ambavyo havina shida, basi ulimwengu mzima hivi sasa ungekuwa hauna janga la njaa na ulimwengu mzima ungekuwa umekubali mambo hayo. Lakini ukiangalia nchi nyingi sana zimekataa jambo kama hili, na taasisi nyingi za utafiti wa kisayansi zimekataa vyakula hivi. Hata ukiangalia chakula chenye, hata ukienda kule sehemu za Amerika, ukiweza kupata tomato na uiangalie tomato hiyo na tomato ambayo
hata utamu sio sawa. Kiswahili sanifu kutoka jimbo la Mombasa. Tuwe na Mheshimiwa Mark Mwenje, mjumbe wa Embakasi West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think this matter is a bipartisan issue, and I thank the House for coming to a consensus for us to debate this matter. Honorable Speaker, my points are few. I don't want to take much time. I believe the first issue, Honorable Speaker, is that GMOs present a threat to our local farmers. And Honorable Speaker, I find it strange that even the members from Rift Valley would agree to importation of GMOs knowing they would be the biggest casualties in such an issue. I also wonder, why would we be adding more fertilizer to farmers if we are bringing in GMOs? Clearly, there is some confusion being brought forth by the government. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the issue of substandard food has been alive in this country. During the COVID period, Honorable Speaker, we had rice that was being boiled for about 2 hours. This rice was distributed in my constituency. I saw it myself, and very many people rejected it. This is a risk that we cannot accept, Honorable Speaker. The third issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of health. As has been stated by very many of my colleagues, there is the issue of cancer and other diseases, other chronic diseases that could come as a result of this GMO. We need to remember the costs of health in this country, the cost of treating cancer in this country. And this must be at the forefront of our government when we are talking about importation of GMOs. We have inadequate healthcare, especially here in Nairobi. As members, we are always contributing to Harambes to assist our constituents. And the issue of cancer is alive in this country. And therefore, we even talk about food that you microwave, that apparently it's not good. If we've gotten to that level, then we cannot ignore the science behind GMOs and what we've learned from the first world countries. Honorable Speaker, if we must import, and this is my final point, if we must import GMO, and the only reason would be to stave off hunger, it should only be a temporary solution. If it must be done, and it's not that I'm saying it should be done, but if it must be done, we must stick to the standards that exist in Europe. If you walk into a shop in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in France, you can clearly see on the shelves which food is marked GMO and which one is what they would call organic. It's very clear. Are we going to give Kenyans these options? I highly doubt it. But if we must import, this must be a condition. Secondly, there must be the science behind each and every GMO product imported into this country. That is something that we cannot take for granted, because we've seen the adverse effects of GMO foods in other countries. The science behind it is there. So we cannot ignore this issue. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion, and kindly, we need this government, and more so the Minister of Trade, because he's a friend, he's a former colleague of this House, a politician. His statements that everyone dies is so reckless. And it even gives us the notion that he himself accepts that GMO food is unfit for human consumption. With that, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you, and I support.
For Dr. Christine Ombaka, MP for Siaya County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I've waited for so long. Finally, I've got an opportunity. I want to contribute to this. One, GMO, when you mention the name GMO, you start feeling scared. You feel worried that something is wrong. It's not a very welcoming name because people associate it with diseases that it brings along with the food that is made out of it. Yesterday, I was watching television, and people were talking about GMO food, and the Kenyan people who responded yesterday were all crying and wondering, are we going to die? Everybody associates it with death, and it has been proved by scientists that GMO is associated with cancer. That's what the people know. So you may import millions and millions of maize, but will it be bought? Because people are afraid to buy what will kill them. I want to ask this country to take care of Kenyans. Kenyans are starving and dying. But that is not a reason for importing poisonous food. We cannot continue to kill Kenyans. Let us die naturally. But let us not die because of hands of man. That somebody has imported maize that is dangerous, that is unhealthy, that is killing, and then Kenyans are going to die. We have a very poor system of health. Cancer is a disease that has defeated this country from managing or treating. It's not easy to treat. It's a long-term disease. It's a very expensive disease to treat. And those that have it travel abroad if they can afford it. Majority of people are so poor that they die in the villages with this disease. If you are bringing food that is going to spread cancer on top of cancer, are we not going to create genocide in this country? How many people are going to die in a year, in the next few months? We are going to have massive death in this country as a result of GMO. So for me, this cannot go on. We cannot allow this. Kenya has imported maize before. It was never associated with GMO. Kenya imported yellow maize. Do we have an opportunity to do that? If we are dying of food, at least let's go for yellow maize. It was safer, people ate it, and we never saw that kind of death. But if we continue with GMO, we are killing Kenya. Kenya citizens are going to perish because GMO is being imported without checking the dangers of it. The English people say, hurry, hurry has no blessing. You lift a ban and you import straight away. You don't listen to scientists. Let us listen to the scientists. They have a story to tell. They have something to tell us about our health and the way to care. If they have dismissed GMO, who are we who are not scientists to challenge that? If other countries has banned GMO food, countries and countries have banned it. They're afraid of it. It's dangerous for their citizens. Kenya is so brave. Kenya is sticking its head to be killed by GMO. I think let us be careful, let us be serious, let's protect Kenya. We cannot afford to import GMO food. It is dangerous for us. We cannot allow ourselves to die so early. Thank you, and I support this bill.
Mjumbe wa jimbo la Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Zamza Mchimba.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Kwanza niweze kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Kirwa kwa mjadala huu wa leo. Inatamausha sana na inasikitisha hali za wakulima zilivyo kule mashinani. Ni mwaka juzi tu wakulima wamekuwa wakilia wakisema wana vyakula ndani ya magala yao, lakini vyakula vinaozea kule. Mimi ningependa kumwambia waziri wa ukulima, ni wakati ufungue macho, ni wakati uangalie Kenya na Wakenya, ni wakati uweke msimamo thabiti kuangalia kuwa Wakenya wanapata chakula na chakula hichi kinachovunwa sehemu zingine za taifa kinaweza kusambaa Kenya nzima. Nikirudi upande wa vyakula vya uhandisi wa jeni, hivi vyakula vinatolewa na saba yake ya asilia, yani ile DNA yake ya mwanzo ambayo imeumbwa na Mwenyezi Mungu, vinatolewa mara viongezwa bakteria hii, viongezwa bakteria na virusi vingine ili kuweza kuviboresha vyakula hivi. Na mimi toka wiki jana nasikitika nikisema watu wangu wa Mombasa County wengi wameathirika na magonjwa ya kansa. Na inasikitika serikali ni juzi tu wameweza kutoa mbolea kutoka Russia, wakati waahidi kuwa wataweza kuboresha ukulima, watapatia wakulima mbegu. Leo hii juzi na jana wameondoa yale marufuku ya kuweza kuleta vyakula vya GMO Kenya. Tunaambiwa tayari bandari liko tayari na maize na mahindi ndani ya magala yale yanangoja kupatia Wakenya. Mimi nasikitika sana na serikali hino. Na mimi napenda kumwambia rais, Wakenya wamekuamini wakakupa kiti hichi katika taifa hili. Mimi naomba fikiria Wakenya kama ulivyo Mkenya. Vyakula hivi ikiwa vitawaua watu waliokupigia kura, basi itakuwa uongozi wako umefeli. Na mimi ningependa kumwambia rais, kuna wakati nakumbuka akiwaeleza wakulima kuwa waweze kupanda avocado. Sijui kama ndio ilikuwa mbinu ya kuweza kupindua ili tuweze kuletewa vyakula hivi, na waza tu kwa sauti. Lakini masikitiko yangu ni kuwa rais unawafeli Wakenya. Wakenya wakati huu wanahangaika na mifuko yao hakuna kitu. Wanahangaika na akili zao kwa maradhi yanayowakumba. Leo hii tunawaletea vyakula vitakavyowamaliza kabisa, waweze kufelea mbali kutoka katika taifa hili. Mimi ningependa kuzungumza na kusema, Wakenya, vyakula hivi vitakuja, na ukiona mbiu ya mgambo inalia jueni kuna jambo. Mimi ningependa kuwashauri kama Mama Zamzam, Mama County ya Mombasa, ikiwa kwa njia yoyote vyakula hivi vitakuja, basi susieni msile. Susieni hata wakulima vile vyenu mlivyopanda, jitoeni kimasomaso mweze kusambazia wenzenu. Ganze watu wanakufa njaa, Tana River watu wanakufa njaa, lakini magala yamejaa na mahindi. Na hapa mbunge amesema hata na mahindi karibu kilo 1500 katika gala lake, na hajui apeleke wapi. Wakati Ganze kuna njaa, na itwaje kule Rift Valley, na kule North Eastern kuna njaa, watu wanakufa Kenya kwa njaa. Mimi nataka niulize serikali hii na waziri wa ukulima, umeelekeza wapi wana Kenya? Umeelekeza wapi wana Kenya ikiwa kuna chakula na wengine wanakufa njaa? Leo hii mwaja kutuambia sisi tupitishe vyakula vya GMO. Hatuwezi haswa kupitisha katika bunge hili. Na mimi nalipinga na namuunga mkono huyu mheshimiwa Kirwa. Hili haliwezekani katika taifa hili. Tuweze kutoa maji, tupeleke sehemu ambazo zimekauka, tuwape mbolea, tuwape mbegu, sehemu hizi tuweze kupanda vyakula. Kenya iwe huru. Ikiwa dudu hawezi kula chakula cha GMO, hapo jua kuna hatari. Manake dudu atakuelekeza kama kitu kizuri ama ni kibaya. Hata wanasayansi leo wamekuwa na hofu ya kusema, kwa sababu wanajua hawezi kupata funds. Hawezi kutuambia ukweli, wameficha ukweli. Wanasikitika kimoyomoyo, lakini naomba wanasayansi wa taifa hili, jitoweni kimasomaso muokoe taifa hili. Asante sana Bwana Spika, naunga mjadala huu. Asante sana.
Mjumbe wa Starehe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this motion. Because I, being a member of Starehe constituency, which is in Nairobi County, I feel the issue about GMO directly affects us because, as you know, Nairobi don't do farming. But we consume the highest amount of foods that come into this country. We dependent on the up-country food basins that supply us with food. But now with the introduction of GMO, I think we are the people who stand to suffer the most. Because currently we have a food shortage in Nairobi as a whole, and in Starehe, in the slum dwelling areas. And these people are people who depend on food. They just eat anything because some of them cannot even afford a meal a day. So when faced with a challenge where they are provided with cheaper food, either it's poisonous or its safety standards are not up to where they're supposed to be, these people will willingly consume this food because they don't have an option. Like a one-time minister said, it will be like raping a woman who is too willing. I say, I highly object this, because if you are to give us an option of this cheap GMO food, we'll be forced to consume it because of the scarcity we have. And we are going to be the most affected. And currently we are suffering lifestyle diseases, because in Nairobi, you understand, even the health systems regimes where people get time to exercise, people can do some farming, do some exercises in the village. In Nairobi, life is so constricted. We're living in a hand-to-mouth economy where you only get time to work for what you eat. And you only get time, you're ever working from 8 to 5 on a daily, and others even do more hours. So even our lifestyles are not that good. And given that we are going to introduce GMO to these people, I can only imagine the devastating effect it will have on the populace of Nairobians. As you can see, already there are people struggling with these lifestyle diseases. The issue of cancer has been very emotive in Nairobi. We are losing people by the day. And even the thought of imagining, of introducing GMO, which is associated with cancers, it is so sickening to the ear. Because like for the last 1 week, I've lost 2 patients to cancer. People who've lost their lives in a way that is very painful. So when you mention introducing a food that is associated with enhancing cancer, I don't think it sounds too well in the society. I think on the issue of importing maize, that is GMO maize, I think that's the most retrogressive idea we'd have as a country. We have swathes of land where people can do irrigation and plant maize which can sustain this country. We had a project that was called Galana Kulalu, where Israeli scientists had proposed that if we were to grow maize in that area, we would be able to sustain our country in terms of food production. I don't know where those progressive ideas have gone to. I don't understand why this government came into power on the promise of subsidizing production. And if the true spirit of subsidizing production was put into reality, we'd have such projects being reinvigorated as of now, so that we can be able to face this issue of food shortage. To imagine that we are supposed to be importing the staple food in our country, and we are talking about going the manufacturing way, we really have our priorities all wrong. I think before we go to manufacturing, we should be able to sustain ourselves in matters of food production and food security in this country before we even think of going to the other level of manufacturing in this country. I stand to support the motion by Mr. Kirwa to safeguard our farmers, and I stand to support the motion against GMOs in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
MP for West Mugirango, the Honorable Stephen Mugaka.
As always, Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much for giving me a chance to make a contribution to this motion. I thank Honorable Kirwa, my counterpart from Rift Valley, for bringing this motion. And I support and support and support. Mr. Speaker, I was almost sweating when I listened to the chair of the Agriculture Committee dropping bombastic terminologies here in defense of GMO. And Google, who never lies, tells me that genetic engineering causes, among other things, toxicity, allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, cancer, loss of nutrition. They are all here. And then a member comes and lies to the whole world that science has proven that genetic engineering has any value to give to this GMO. Mr. Speaker, I want to support the Kenyan farmers. I am proud to be in the 13th Parliament that has in unison condemned the unilateral lifting of the ban on GMO and insist that we need to progress in this parliament to bring a bill that actually slaps a statutory ban on importation of GMO products into this republic. Because we have created institutions that have done substantive research. Kenya Seed Company has done research and has given us Katumani maize, which does very well in Ukambani region. Uasin Gishu, Trans Nzoia, and Gusii are known to be the food baskets of this republic. How can any government that means well for its farmers import maize on the eve of harvesting by our farmers in the Rift Valley? This is economic sabotage. Even if you want to dump foreign maize in this republic so that Kenyan farmers don't fetch a good price in the market, this is not the way to do it. And I stand lamenting that only last week, Mr. Speaker, we were debating here on a possible ban on pesticides. These GMO things are, sprayed with pesticide left, right, and center. And this is what interferes with our water sources and breeds cancer in this republic. Biosafety and biosecurity is a key thing that informed the ban on GMOs 10 years ago. I take exception that the executive could unilaterally lift a ban, expose the entire country to such risk when it was so easy for the Agriculture Committee or the relevant leader of majority bringing a motion to Parliament so that we debate and agree as a country whether or not to lift a ban on GMO. Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with patients raising money to pay bills because of people contracting conditions that are known in Africa. Africa has enough land, Africa has enough soil, Africa has enough scientists to do research and give us the best possible variety of foods. In any case, Mr. Speaker, Kenya is a signatory to the Africa Free Trade Agreement. Why are we importing maize from far yonder when we can get this maize from our neighbors? Are we then serious to be members of the East African community? I support this motion. We should have no GMO within the borders of this republic. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Joseph Oyula, MP for Butula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice to this motion. I want to thank Mheshimiwa who brought up this motion because it is timely. Mr. Speaker, the government of Kenya wants to cheat the Kenyans. The government knows very well that it is supposed to provide funds to NCPB, who will buy maize from the farmers and then get the maize in the market. Farmers are still stocking maize. In fact, as we speak now, Mr. Speaker, the crop of 2021 is still in the stores. It's only now that some farmers have started disposing of that crop. If that crop is still in the stores of farmers, Mr. Speaker, why can't the government get the money that it's using to import this GMO food from outside and buy that maize and supply to the people who are hit by drought in this country? Mr. Speaker, people will look at Kenya as a very different country, doing things that are not expected. We cannot be leaving our maize to rot in stores and go and buy maize from elsewhere and come and feed our people with GMO food. GMO food is going to cause a lot of harm to our people, as it has been mentioned, Mr. Speaker. We are going to have so many funerals. We are going to spend a lot of money, and our health facilities are not all that good. So, let the government look at the most appropriate way of handling food shortage, if there is any, in this country. Let us fund farmers appropriately. Let us ensure that the farm produce is sold by the farmers at a reasonable price. That will encourage farming and will have a lot of maize in this country. Mr. Speaker, if we continue looking outside and importing food that is going to kill our people, I think we will not be doing the right thing. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion and ask our government to make sure that that maize is not brought into this country, and that maize is going to cause a lot of problems for we politicians, and we ensure that we do the right thing, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Lilian Sioi, in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to support this motion. And I want to congratulate Mr. Kirwa. I'm an MP from Trans Nzoia County, and I want to say that Trans Nzoia is a county that is the largest producer of maize. I don't think we've reached to a level of importing maize, because farmers from Trans Nzoia still have plenty of maize and it has not been bought. So when we go to import maize, that means we've already consumed what we have. We are killing our farmers by doing this, because we cannot import maize and we want to say that we are promoting farmers. If at all we cannot provide, Mr. Speaker, we cannot give them a platform to sell their maize, we are the ones that are going to kill this sector of farming. And I also want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I'm surprised the CS had to make this decision by himself, which is a very big decision that he did, without even inquiring from the Committee of Agriculture. Our members from Agriculture don't understand what is going on, and I want to say that we are blaming them for something that they are totally innocent. The importation of maize, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, is illegal. And the maize that has already been brought in that has been shipped in, we want to say that we want to see that maize not being supplied in our country, because our farmers will not be able to sell the maize. They will lack the market to sell our maize. And again, the maize that has been brought in is going to kill the price, bearing in mind that, Mr. Speaker, the input this year was very expensive. If at all we don't give them a platform to sell their maize, then we will have the same next year. People will shy off from farming, and from there we will continue importing maize, or which will be killing the sector of agriculture in our country. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I want to say that the GMO maize that has been imported should be stopped with immediate effect. Thank you so much.
Honorable Marwa Kitayama, are you on point of order?
Mheshimiwa Spika, na kushukuru kwa nafasi hii. Mimi sitasema kwamba nina ufahamu wa GMO, hiyo sayansi mimi sifahamu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini mimi najua kwamba wakulima wetu wengi sana katika maeneo ya nchi hii wako na chakula, wamelima, wana mahindi na vyakula vya aina tofauti tofauti vimejaa katika bagala hayo. Wanatafuta sehemu tu ya kuuza. Maeneo ambayo ninatoka mimi, Kuria East na Kuria West, na maeneo hayo ya Kilgoris, maeneo yale ya Ngata Baragoi na maeneo mengine ya Nyamaiya na kwingineko, mahindi yamejaa katika mashamba sasa hivi. Tuko karibu kuvuna mahindi. Itakuwa ni jambo la ajabu sana, Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa tutapata kwamba serikali hii badala ya kungojea tu siku 2-3 waweze kupata mavuno haya, wakulima wanapigwa na sasa na ile mshangao kwamba tayari kuna mahindi yamekuja katika bandari ya Mombasa yakingoja kuingia katika nchi, na sisi wote tunajua ikifanyika hivyo basi mahindi ya mkulima yatakuwa kwamba hayataweza kununuliwa. Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nasimama kuunga mkono Mheshimiwa mwenzangu ambaye ameleta mswada huu. Tatizo hata sio GMO, tatizo ni tabia mbaya, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, tabia mbaya haina tiba, ni tabia mbaya tu. Serikali hii inahitaji kutoka katika mkondo ule ambaye serikali zilizopita ilikuwa inafanya, tabia mbaya kumdhulumu mkulima na mwananchi wa kawaida.
Honorable Kitayama, it was an adjournment motion. No, you've been cut short, but the business of Parliament is prescribed in time. Honorable members, and the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned.